whispers in the dark. The world watched in awe. Young athletes, sculpted by years of dedication, defied gravity. They soared through the air, embodiments of power and grace. Olympic gold shimmered, a testament to their tireless pursuit of perfection. But beneath the dazzling spectacle, a darkness festered. Whispers of abuse, silenced for years, began to surface. A chilling truth emerged, staining the world of gymnastics forever. This is the story of the survivors, the brave athletes who dared to speak out against their abuser, Larry Nassar. The whispers started quietly, secrets shared in hushed tones between teammates, a touch that lingered too long, a treatment that felt wrong. Fear kept them silent, the weight of their dreams, their coach's expectations, a suffocating burden. Their hero, the man entrusted with their well-being, was a predator hiding in plain sight. USA Gymnastics, once a beacon of national pride, became synonymous with betrayal. The organization, built on a foundation of discipline and excellence, had failed its athletes in the most fundamental way. The quest for gold, for international acclaim, had blinded those in power to the suffering within their ranks. A culture of silence had taken root, allowing abuse to flourish unchecked. The Caroli Ranch, a sprawling training facility in the Texas heartland, became a symbol of both triumph and tragedy. It was here, under the watchful eyes of legendary coaches Bella and Martha Caroli, that generations of gymnasts trained to achieve their Olympic dreams. But it was also here, in this secluded environment, that Larry Nassar found his victims, exploiting their isolation and vulnerability. His betrayal cut deep, shattering the trust that these athletes had placed in him and the system that had failed to protect them. As the scandal unfolded, the true scope of the abuse became horrifyingly clear. Hundreds of athletes, from aspiring Olympians to young girls just starting their gymnastics journey, came forward with their stories. The sheer number of victims, the duration of Nassar's crimes, and the systemic failures that allowed him to operate with impunity sent shockwaves through the sports world and beyond. The U.S. Olympic Committee, tasked with safeguarding the integrity of American athletics, faced intense scrutiny. Accusations of negligence, of prioritizing image over athlete well-being, plagued the organization. The resignation of key figures, including USA Gymnastics CEO Steve Penny, did little to quell the public outcry. The message was clear: the safety and well-being of athletes must come first, above medals, sponsorships, and organizational reputation. From the outside looking in, the world of elite gymnastics shimmered with promise. Young athletes, hand-picked for their talent and unwavering dedication, trained tirelessly in pursuit of a singular goal: Olympic glory. Gyms across the nation buzzed with the energy of dreams being forged, each flip, each spin, a testament to the relentless pursuit of perfection. The training regimen was grueling, demanding unwavering commitment and sacrifice. Hours were spent honing skills to razor-sharp precision, pushing the limits of physical endurance. Pain became an unwelcome companion, a constant reminder of the sacrifices made in the name of athletic excellence. Yet, amidst the sweat and the striving, a camaraderie blossomed, a shared understanding binding these young athletes together in their pursuit of greatness. The pursuit of perfection, however, came at a cost. Injuries were commonplace, the repetitive strain of training taking its toll on young, developing bodies. Stress fractures, torn ligaments, chronic pain. These were the unspoken realities of a sport that demanded so much from its athletes. The fear of appearing weak, of jeopardizing their place in the fiercely competitive world of elite gymnastics, often silenced any complaints, pushing athletes to train through pain. Eating disorders ran rampant, fueled by the relentless pursuit of a physique deemed ideal for success. Young girls, their bodies still developing, subjected themselves to extreme diets, their relationship with food becoming as distorted as their perception of their own bodies. The pressure to succeed extended beyond the gym, permeating every aspect of their lives. These young athletes, robbed of a normal childhood, lived in a pressure cooker of their own making, their identities inextricably linked to their athletic achievements. Within this high-stakes environment, where silence was often equated with strength, a dangerous culture of silence took root. Athletes, conditioned to trust their coaches implicitly, were often reluctant to speak out about injuries, let alone abuse. Fear of jeopardizing their careers, of being ostracized by their peers, or worse, of not being believed, kept them trapped in a cycle of silence. The very structure of elite gymnastics, with its hierarchical power dynamics and emphasis on obedience, further enabled this culture of silence to flourish. Coaches held significant sway over their athletes' careers, controlling everything from competition placements to sponsorship opportunities. Speaking out against a coach, especially one as renowned as Larry Nassar, seemed unthinkable, a career-ending move that could shatter their Olympic dreams before they had even begun. Larry Nassar, with his unassuming demeanor and gentle touch, was a master manipulator, adept at exploiting the vulnerabilities of those entrusted to his care. He understood the physical and emotional pressures these young athletes faced, the sacrifices they made, the dreams they held close to their hearts. He used his position of authority, his reputation as a healer, to gain their trust, to break down their defenses, to transform himself from a trusted physician into a predator hiding in plain sight. Nassar's predatory behavior, however, did not emerge overnight. It was, as with many abusers, a gradual erosion of boundaries, a slow creep of inappropriate behavior masked as legitimate medical treatment. He began by pushing the limits of acceptable physical contact, his touches lingering a little too long, his treatments venturing into increasingly uncomfortable territory. And as his victims remained silent, emboldened by their apparent compliance, his behavior escalated, becoming bolder, more egregious, more brazen in its violation. The medical room, once a sanctuary for injured athletes seeking solace and healing, transformed into Nassar's twisted playground. Behind closed doors, under the guise of medical treatment, he orchestrated a perverse symphony of abuse, his touch a weapon wielded with calculated precision. The young athletes, conditioned to trust their medical professionals without question, found themselves trapped in a nightmare of their own. Nassar's methods were insidious, his manipulations subtle yet devastatingly effective. He would often dismiss parents from the examination room, assuring them of his expertise, his understanding of their daughter's unique needs. Alone and vulnerable, the young athletes found themselves at the mercy of a predator who wielded his medical credentials like a shield, deflecting any suspicion, any doubt. Whispers of Nassar's inappropriate behavior began to circulate, hushed conversations exchanged in locker rooms and training camps. A sense of unease settled over the gymnasts, a growing awareness that something wasn't right. But fear, that constant companion in the high-stakes world of elite athletics, kept them silent. The pressure to succeed, to please their coaches, to fulfill their Olympic dreams, weighed heavily on their young shoulders. Speaking out against a renowned doctor, a man entrusted with their well-being, seemed unthinkable. They feared retribution, ostracism, the shattering of their dreams. The responsibility for Nassar's reign of terror extended far beyond the individual. A culture of complicity, of prioritizing reputation over the well-being of athletes, had taken root within USA Gymnastics, creating fertile ground for abuse to flourish. Red flags were ignored, warning signs dismissed, as those in power turned a blind eye to the suffering within their ranks. Coaches, driven by the pursuit of Olympic glory, often pushed their athletes to their physical and emotional limits. Injuries were downplayed, pain dismissed as weakness. In this environment, Nassar's treatments, however unconventional, were often seen as a necessary evil, a means to an end. For years, Nassar's reign of terror continued unabated, but beneath the surface a quiet rebellion was brewing. The whispers grew louder, the doubts harder to ignore. And finally, in 2015, the first crack appeared in Nassar's carefully constructed facade. Maggie Nichols, a talented young gymnast with Olympic aspirations, confided in her coach about Nassar's inappropriate behavior. The coach, to her credit, took Maggie's allegations seriously and reported them to USA Gymnastics officials. The bravery of Maggie Nichols, in daring to speak out against a powerful figure, would have a ripple effect, inspiring countless others to come forward and share their own stories of abuse. The year is 2016. The world, captivated by the upcoming Olympic Games, remained oblivious to the storm brewing beneath the surface of American gymnastics. Behind the scenes, a group of courageous women, fueled by a shared sense of injustice and a burning desire for accountability, prepared to take on a system that had failed them for far too long. Rachel Den Hollander, a former gymnast haunted by years of silenced pain, made a life-altering decision. Driven by a fierce determination to protect others from enduring the same abuse, she reached out to the Indianapolis Star, her voice trembling as she recounted the horrors she had endured at the hands of Larry Nassar. Her story, published in September 2016, would ignite a firestorm, forever changing the landscape of American sports. As more survivors came forward, the true scope of Nassar's depravity became horrifyingly clear. Olympic gold medalists, their names synonymous with athletic excellence, stood shoulder to shoulder with aspiring gymnasts, their dreams shattered by the abuse they had endured. Each woman carried her own unique story of betrayal, of pain, of silenced suffering, yet they were united by a shared experience, a bond forged in the crucible of trauma. Jamie Dantzscher, a member of the 2000 Olympic bronze medal-winning team, spoke of the emotional and physical scars left by Nassar's abuse. Ali Raceman, captain of both the 2012 and 2016 Olympic gold medal-winning teams, used her platform to call for accountability, not just for Nassar, but for the institutions that had enabled him. The courtroom, transformed into a space of reckoning, became a testament to the power of speaking truth to power. One by one, the survivors stepped forward, their voices echoing through the hushed chamber, each testimony a searing indictment of Nassar's crimes and the systemic failures that had allowed them to occur. They spoke of stolen innocence, of shattered dreams, of bodies violated and spirits broken. They spoke of the shame and self-blame that had haunted them for years, the insidious legacy of abuse that continued to cast a long shadow over their lives. They spoke of the courage it took to break their silence, to confront their abuser, to reclaim their voices and their power. Their testimonies were raw, unflinching, and deeply moving. They laid bare the devastating impact of sexual abuse, not just on the individual, but on families, communities, and society as a whole. They challenged the culture of silence that had allowed predators like Nassar to flourish, demanding accountability, transparency, and a fundamental shift in how institutions protect the vulnerable. Throughout the trial, Nassar sat in the courtroom, a captive audience to the pain and anguish he had inflicted. The man who had once been revered as a healer, a confidant to young athletes, now faced the consequences of his actions. The weight of his crimes laid bare before him. The survivors, their voices growing stronger with each passing day, refused to be silenced any longer. Judge Rosemarie Aquilina, presiding over the case, became a symbol of unwavering support for the survivors. She listened intently to their testimonies, her compassion evident in her demeanor, her words a beacon of hope in a courtroom often defined by formality and detachment. She allowed the survivors to reclaim their narratives, to speak their truths without limitation, transforming the sentencing hearing into a powerful act of validation and empowerment. "Leave your shame in this courtroom," Judge Aquilina declared, her words resonating far beyond the confines of the courtroom walls. Her message was clear: the survivors were not to blame, their voices mattered, and their abuser would be held accountable for the devastation he had wrought. In January 2018, after an extraordinary 7-day sentencing hearing, during which over 150 women and girls delivered impact statements, Judge Aquilina delivered Nassar's fate. The sentence, a historic 40 to 175 years in prison, reflected the gravity of his crimes and sent a resounding message that society would no longer tolerate the abuse of power and the silencing of survivors. The shockwaves from the Nassar scandal reverberated far beyond the world of gymnastics, exposing a culture of abuse and complicity that extended into the very fabric of American sports. The case became a chilling reminder that even the most celebrated institutions, cloaked in the mantle of prestige and national pride, could harbor dark secrets. Suddenly, the whispers that had long circulated in hushed tones within locker rooms and training facilities across the country were given a voice. Athletes from various disciplines, swimming, diving, taekwondo, figure skating, began to step forward, their stories echoing the pain and betrayal that had become synonymous with the Nassar case. The veil had been lifted, and the ugly truth was impossible to ignore. The public, once content to bask in the reflected glory of athletic achievement, was forced to confront the human cost of their entertainment. The image of young athletes, their bodies honed to perfection, their smiles beaming from magazine covers, now carried a haunting undercurrent of vulnerability and exploitation. Few institutions faced a reckoning as profound as USA Gymnastics. The organization, once synonymous with Olympic glory and the pursuit of athletic excellence, found itself at the epicenter of a scandal that shook it to its core. Accusations of negligence, cover-ups, and a blatant disregard for the well-being of athletes plagued the organization, leading to a mass exodus of leadership and a desperate scramble for redemption. Steve Penny, the longtime president and CEO of USA Gymnastics, resigned under a cloud of controversy, his legacy forever tainted by the organization's failure to protect its athletes. The Karolyi Ranch, once a hallowed training ground for Olympic hopefuls, was closed down, its legacy forever intertwined with the horrors that had unfolded within its walls. In the aftermath of the scandal, USA Gymnastics implemented a series of reforms aimed at preventing future abuse and fostering a culture of transparency and accountability. Safe Sport, an independent organization dedicated to investigating claims of abuse in Olympic sports, was given greater authority and resources. Mandatory reporting guidelines were strengthened, and educational programs were rolled out to raise awareness about sexual abuse and empower athletes to speak up. The Nassar case sparked a broader conversation about accountability within amateur athletics, challenging the long-held belief that coaches, trainers, and sports officials were beyond reproach. The scandal exposed the inherent power imbalances that exist within these hierarchical structures, where young athletes often find themselves beholden to the very adults entrusted with their care. Lawmakers, spurred by the public outcry, introduced legislation aimed at strengthening protections for young athletes. The Protecting Young Victims from Sexual Abuse and Safe Sport Authorization Act, signed into law in 2018, made it a federal crime to fail to report suspected child sexual abuse in amateur athletics and mandated training for adults who work with young athletes. The U.S. Olympic Committee, long criticized for its insular culture and its failure to adequately address abuse within its ranks, faced intense scrutiny and calls for reform. The organization implemented a series of changes, including increased funding for safe sport and the creation of an athlete ombudsman to address complaints and concerns. In the wake of the Nassar scandal, a new generation of athletes emerged, empowered by the courage of those who had dared to break the silence. They refused to be silenced, to be intimidated, to be complicit in a culture that prioritized medals and accolades over the well-being of its athletes. The survivors of Larry Nassar's abuse, through their unwavering pursuit of justice and their willingness to share their stories, sparked a cultural shift, not just within the world of sports, but within society as a whole. They became beacons of hope, their resilience a testament to the indomitable spirit of those who refuse to be defined by their trauma. The road to healing is long and arduous, but the legacy of the Nassar scandal serves as a powerful reminder that change is possible, that silence is not an option, and that the pursuit of justice, however challenging, is a fight worth fighting. The voices of the survivors, once silenced by fear and intimidation, now echo through the halls of power, demanding a future where the safety and well-being of athletes are paramount. The echoes of the Larry Nassar scandal continue to reverberate, a stark reminder of the human cost of silence. The survivors, forever marked by the abuse, have emerged as beacons of hope. Their resilience is a testament to the indomitable spirit within us all. Their stories have ignited a global conversation about sexual abuse. They have shown us that true bravery lies in the courage to speak truth to power. The survivors have found the strength to rebuild their lives and pursue their passions. They have shown us that healing is possible and that the human spirit is capable of extraordinary resilience. The fight for a safer future is far from over. The Nassar scandal reminded us that even revered institutions can harbor darkness. Power structures often protect abusers rather than the vulnerable. We must remain vigilant and challenge the status quo. Hold those in power accountable to prevent abuse. Listen to survivors, believe their stories and offer support. Challenge the culture of silence and create compassionate spaces. The fight for justice requires collective effort and education. Teach children about boundaries, consent, and speaking up. Empowering our children helps break the cycle of abuse. The flame of justice, ignited by the courage of the survivors, must continue to burn brightly. It illuminates the darkest corners, exposing hidden truths. It warms the hearts of those who have suffered in silence, reminding them they are not alone. It guides us towards a future where abuse is not tolerated and survivors are supported. The legacy of the Nassar scandal is one of profound loss and extraordinary courage. The fight for a safer future continues, fueled by the unwavering spirit of the survivors. Let us honor their courage by being guardians of the flame, ensuring lessons are never forgotten.